I bet if someone said they had been working on a comic for years, they would be almost done with it or pretty close. Unfortunately for me, I've had to scrap and reboot my comic 3 times in the last 3 years. Hi there, my name is Caster, and I've been a comic artist for 5 years now. I started back in 2020 when we all had a lot of sudden free time. My work is all self-published on the comic app Webtoon Canvas, either by me or Liam, who helps write the stories on this channel. For over half of my comic career, I've been attempting to make a comic called Beeswax, a romance story about this guy, Soma Lark, and his struggles through both his romantic and professional life in a magical world. The story is very inspired by works like Studio Ghibli's films, because who isn't at this point, as well as shows like Twin Peaks, Gravity Falls, or Northern Exposure. I'm from the Pacific Northwest. 2 of the previously mentioned shows were filmed an hour or so away from my hometown, and I feel like the forests around here fit that magical Ghibli feeling quite well. I've thought a lot about the reasons why I keep going back to the drawing board, and I hope I can give some tips for what not to do in your own work. The links to all my comics will be in the description below if you want to check them out. The first thing is to make sure what you're making really means something to you. Beeswax is a story that has become close to my heart, but I actually started it for pretty shallow reasons. When I came up with the series concept, I was a month or 2 out from finishing my previous series, Strix Agency. A friend had convinced me to wrap up the story and make something new, as I would have a better chance on Webtoon if I gave it up. I decided that my next series would be a romance, most likely a BL or boys love story, because those stories do well on Webtoon. While I don't think this initial idea for my next project was bad, the next one is what killed the story the first time around. Since I wanted my next series to come out the week after Strix ended, I'll be forced to make it without writing any scripts. I thought I'd be able to do it at the time, as I had been hitting my weekly release for Strix its entire 32 chapter lifespan by just drawing whatever felt best. What I did not realize at the time is that the bulk of my scrapped characters and plot ideas from all my old stories have been used up by Strix, and I did need a break to come up with anything new. Early on, Soma was not much different from my previous protagonist Jordan, because I didn't give him the time to become someone else. He becomes the apprentice to some unnamed beekeeper in the town of Lancaster. Soma and his love interest Tyler meet when Tyler brings packages to the beekeeper's house, and Tyler introduces Soma to the local witch. At her house, Soma accidentally frees a demon or something like that from a book, and that's basically all I made before deciding I needed to stop whatever this comic was. To be honest, I don't have fond memories of this early version. I barely remember making it. I think the art is weaker than Strix's, with less of a clear direction, and I think it's painfully obvious I had no plan in terms of the story. It's 8 episodes long, and nothing happened because the episodes themselves are so short. This is what running on fumes looks like. This isn't to say I didn't make anything good here. There's one character whose importance to my life I would have never guessed. The witch is familiar, Caster. They were made on the spot as a shape-shifting cat who could be a more comedic character. I did not draw the cat form until the next version of the story, but I immediately enjoyed the human design as something so different than any other character I've made. I wanted them to look very comfortable and sleepy like a cat, so I gave them this big onesie pajama suit and a wool hat to look like ears. Unfortunately, not much else would be taken from this version. I didn't make it for the right reasons. I was just wanting numbers on social media, so I forced myself into a comic I hadn't learned to care about yet because I was afraid I'd lose the little following I had. I took about 6 months to rethink, plan out, and start drawing Beeswax 2.0. I already had a list of things I didn't like, specifically lack of interesting characters and their interpersonal dynamics. Strix inherited a lot of fully formed characters from old stories, which made it very easy to write. A ton of my favorite characters were made in this time period, like Magrith Morathon. Caster is her familiar, and I love her a lot. I had recently finished Resident Evil Village when designing her, so I had the thought that all witches grow like trees. They kinda keep going, and this idea helped push the ethereal feeling of magic I wanted to convey. And this version did something quite important too. which is showing up on the front page of Webtoon almost immediately after I posted it. A ton of people showed up, and I know a few of them are still around today. I'm so grateful to the support they show me, even when I couldn't see what they could. Because of how quickly I was trying to turn around and put out the comic again, I accidentally made Tyler and Soma into the same character. The writing started to get really convoluted, because the romance plot and all of the magic stuff became basically unrelated. This is something I didn't realize until too late, which is an unfortunate pattern here, because I had it in my head that I didn't want the main relationship to be too supernatural. It's something I was thinking about in media like Stardew Valley, where the magic is more subtle in the world. However, I still kept that demon from the first comic. I don't know why, maybe because I liked Bill Cipher from Gravity Falls, but I felt like I needed a quote-unquote epic plot. I thought it might get too boring, and I kinda missed drawing action scenes, so I slammed this weird high-stakes plot into what was supposed to be a low-stakes romance story. I should have shown some restraint and said no here, but it's hard to do that when you're writing just scripts. Having to work on the canvas at all times with Strick's agency meant that I couldn't imagine anything that I couldn't draw right then and there. It actually meant a lot less compromising on what the story is supposed to be. Now, I kept writing and thinking, oh yeah, I can draw this for sure. It's gonna happen. Later. Every time later came, I was not able to bring the ideas to life, and both the work and my faith in it kept taking these little hits. Beeswax 2.0 ran for 13 weeks before I took a 4-month break, only coming back for 8 more episodes. If you read it now, you're going to notice a massive style shift between the first part and the second. I'd gotten tired with how artificial my work felt, and tried to make myself fall in love with it again. But it didn't work. A weird writing thing I picked up on my first ever Webtoon series was to write the first arc as a microcosm of the whole story, so if I got bored of the comic and wanted to move on, I would still have something kinda complete. The downside to writing like that is that you might actually write a good end to your series that's better than anything else you have planned. I didn't want to accept that answer. There was so much to do, and I wanted to do it with these characters and this story title. The process of getting the story into the shape it is now was honestly a bit painful. I had to rip out so much of what I put in to get it back to a simple core of a story onto which I could rebuild. A lot of changes happened here as I reworked things into an almost unrecognizable shape. There are 3 big changes in the new version: the removal of Tyler's character, the location change away from the small town of Witch's Cape to Seattle, and a new time jump to bridge the love story. I like Tyler's character in isolation, but I don't actually like him and Soma as a couple. Also, the leads of a fantasy story should be interested in the magic, otherwise why have it? So I took a character I made early in 2024 and made him into the new love interest. This is Dazio Stareye. He comes from a long line of famous witches, and uses his magic to perform divination for social media. He had been planned as a side character for a long time, but I bumped him up to the main love interest because him and Soma are almost opposites. He's brash and vain, loves the spotlight, but the pair share an inability to truly relate to other people. Their friction is what breaks down the other's walls. Not only did I make the love interest a witch, I changed Soma's backstory so that he's Magarith's apprentice and took up plant magic. Not only was he not interested in magic previously, he did not even know it existed until the story started, and I kept finding it hard to make him engage with it naturally. This way, it's built into his character from the beginning. The jump from town to city is a bit extreme, but it was done to help me visualize the world better. Despite growing up in a fairly small town, I found it hard to clearly define Witch's Cape as a setting. Moving the story to Seattle meant I could take photos and reference real-world locations to help push the fantastical aspects further. The time jump is an idea I had to keep some existing characters and locations still relevant to a story that can't include them in the new setting. Soma and Dazio meet when they're teenagers, and both are unsure about their place in the world. The first scene of the comic depicts the last time they see each other, which is copied nearly 1-for-1 from the opening chapter of Beeswax 2. I loved this scene, but it felt so out of place considering the comic that followed after. This new version has this at its core. They meet again 10 years in the future, and both have changed a lot in that time. I tried to make that very clear in their designs, especially how the two have taken elements of the other to show the bond they used to have. To be honest, I'm still figuring out a couple of story aspects, though I know I'll find the answer eventually. I guess my final lesson here would be to go with what you feel is best for the story. I've studied a lot of different styles of plotting and scripting, which is a topic for another video. What you need to know is that there are less ways of telling stories, and more of a way to file your thoughts in order. You've got to do what you feel is right. Sometimes, stories come out exactly as they should, but I think it's a lot closer to putting a puzzle together without knowing what the final picture looks like. I never gave myself enough time to actually put beeswax into the right shape, but I think it's ready now. The first 5 pages are on my Patreon for free, with future pages behind the $2 tier. I'll also be uploading beeswax onto YouTube as audiobooks and motion comics as well. It'll help me tell the story and share the characters with a brand new audience. So if you're interested in hearing what this is all about, stay tuned for next week on Caster's Coven.